Hey everyone. Thanks for tuning in to the Davidson Hang podcast. I'm excited to introduce to you Dee DiFatta, who is a inspirational and positivity coach. And so I know you're the founder of A Dose of Positivity. So we're going to talk about your book. And I also read on your profile that you've had 49 years of life and 27 years living with MS, and that you've been working in the insurance industry for a while. And you do a lot. You do private and group coaching. You also do educational programs, speaking engagements, and you help people redefine their circumstances so that they can break through their barriers and achieve boundless potential. And you also teach fundamental strategies necessary for people to free themselves from limiting beliefs of the past and gain the confidence and courage to get realigned with their purpose so that they can redesign their path forward.
Oh, that sounds even better coming from you.
You're so nice. So I wanted to start off by reading just like from on your Amazon page, which is like, isn't that such a cool feeling to just search
Yes.
yourself on Amazon and see you pop up on the results? Like
I still can't believe it.
yeah, it's so cool. And congratulations. I saw that you're number one in bestsellers in health and spirituality, and then also number one in inner child and personal transformation, and number two in personal transformation and spirituality, which is not
Ooh,
bad. I mean,
that's awesome.
I'll take it, right?
Yes, exactly.
But I wanted to start off by reading a bit. So it says, so you said, what does it take to foster a grateful heart, to find a sense of peace, and to seek balance in the chaos? In the midst of all the challenges and trials life can throw at you, it can be hard to slow down and take that vital beat, the one that lets you exhale, to reflect, to refocus. Enter the positivity method. In this lovely day-to-day book, author Dee DiFatta makes it easy. Simple thoughts and ways of framing your outlook are offered in daily bite-sized chunks. Just open to the page and read, pause, reflect, and breathe. Then move on with your day, empowered to respond to whatever life throws at you.
I feel relaxed already.
Yeah, I love it. Clearly, you have had some adversity in your life, right?
Yes.
Um, and it's always inspiring to see, because I do think not a lot of us, I think the pandemic has helped us kind of like have a little glimpse of like just taking things for granted,
Hmm.
but you had that even prior to the pandemic, right? Because of what you've
Yeah.
gone through because of MS, right?
Yeah, MS has been a long journey. 27 years is a long time. And
Yeah.
I was grateful. I was definitely grateful because the neurologist told me in the very beginning it was either an inoperable brain tumor or multiple sclerosis. I'm like, okay, I'm good. Thank you. Bye.
Mm,
I'll take this. I don't know what it is, but I'll take it.
yeah.
So yeah, I was okay with it, not even knowing what it was. But I wasn't okay with it. I
Mm,
mean, it was the day before my 22nd birthday. That was not the present I was looking for. It wasn't
yeah.
expected, it wasn't anticipated, and it definitely was not wanted.
Mm,
So I was a go-getter. You couldn't stop me. I was on the run all the time, and I was an overachiever, and I was stressed out, and I was a perfectionist, and I just wanted to be a
mm,
people pleaser. And I'm like, yes. And all of a sudden I was stopped. It's like, oh crap, what do I do now? And it took me a long time to get the message. I didn't quite get it. You know how people have that like aha moment, like, okay, I'm
mm,
stopped in my tracks. I really need to think about this. What was I doing before I was diagnosed and how can I move forward? Yeah,
mhm.
no. I'm I was born a stubborn person. People call it resilient. I am resilient, but I'm also stubborn. It took me years to get the message. I'm like,
Mm.
oh, gotcha. Just glad I caught on when I did because I did not want to be stopped in another way.
That's funny. I've never heard anyone say resilience is stubbornness. But yeah, I would say I'm both, right? Like
Yeah.
I think my wife would agree that, I can be quite stubborn.
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely spin stubborn to the positive and be like, yeah, I'm resilient because I am resilient. I mean, that's the
Right.
positive version of stubborn, but I can also be stubborn.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's a good acknowledging. I think once we acknowledge something, we can be free from it instead of pretend like it doesn't exist.
I have been doing that all of 2020. All of 2020 for me, and I finally figured out what it was. I owned it. I owned
Hmm.
the good, the bad, and the ugly. I allowed myself to feel it, even though I didn't want to. I forgave it and I released it. I'm like, oh, thank you. So,
Hmm.
but it's never a one and done. It's a constant.
Hmm.
It's just like evolution. It's just like transformation. It's just like living. It's not a one and done.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think some of us think like, oh, I'm done with this. Like, this it'll never phase me again. But things come up. Like, people get triggered, right? Like,
Oh yeah.
yeah, every day it's a process, right? I mean, I think every day gets a little bit easier, right? But it
Yes.
never truly grows that way 100%.
No, and actually I've learned to befriend that stuff too. I'm like, you know what? Okay, what are you trying to tell me? Obviously, you're here
Hmm.
for a reason. What story are you trying to tell me? I'm not going to listen to the negative stories. What lesson are you trying to teach me?
Hmm.
So I've learned to not send it away altogether, not completely and totally like stuff it in a box or release it, but I've allowed it a voice.
Hmm.
I'm like, okay, you can come into my life. It's okay. I get that. Just tell me why. Why are you here? And I lean
Hmm.
into that and I reflect and I'm like, oh, okay. This is because of this emotion or what happened here. And I haven't
Hmm.
truly released that yet. Like I feel tight. Why do I feel tight?
Hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah, I like what you said about like being curious about it and
Mm,
then giving it a voice. There's a at least there's some a way to dealing with it instead of letting it consume us, right? So
definitely.
that's really powerful. Wow.
Yeah. And it's not just our stories and what triggers us, but it's every part and piece of our body has a voice. And we don't even
Mm,
realize it. I didn't realize it. I mean, think about it. When you push yourself too hard and your back hurts, why does your back hurt? Because you
mm,
pushed yourself too hard. But do you ever
yeah.
ask your back, why are you hurting me right now? What do you want from
Mm,
me? Or when you get a headache, do you ever ask your head, why do you hurt right now? What are you trying to tell me?
mm.
No, because we think that we have all the answers up here and we don't.
Interesting. Yeah, so you're very in tune with your body now, right? Like you said, because
Yes.
maybe in the past you weren't as aware of like why your back may be hurting, and
Mhm.
so you think that because you're such a workaholic and because you were such a go-getter, you think that it actually affected your physical back.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I would push through everything. There was no
Hmm.
resting, relaxing. Um, there were no revelations to be found because I never shut up long enough. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
I never actually asked the question, why are you bothering me? And listened for the answer. I just powered
Yeah.
through. And powering through does not help, but at the time, I didn't love myself enough to give myself the self care that I needed.
Hmm.
I was all about, bringing smiles to everybody else and making everybody
Hmm.
else feel good and being a people pleaser. And I
Hmm.
was all about them. Like I had always learned to, treat other people as you want to be treated. And I treated people great. I treated myself like crap.
Hmm.
I'm like, wow, it took a long time for me to find the love for myself. I
Hmm.
really had to go digging for like, why does this not exist for you? What is your issue? Why can't you love yourself right now?
Hmm.
And there were a lot of underlying, limiting beliefs and self-doubts and fears and worries that I had to work through. And I did. And I'm proud of myself because had I not done that, this book never would have been born.
Hmm. Yeah, and it's interesting because I'm sure others have always loved you, right? Like your friends, your family, your
Yeah,
coworkers, but it starts from within, right? So others could
definitely.
love us, but we won't be able to receive it. And I know that's one of your first quotes in January. And yeah, like I guess like when do you think was there like a single catalyst or was it just continually over time?
When when was the time I stopped loving myself, or when was this time I started loving myself
Oh, I was asking starting, but we could talk about stop too. I mean
again?
that's a really deep topic. Yeah.
Yeah. When did I start loving myself? It's really funny. I think I started loving myself in 2020, in August of 2020,
Wow.
when I was doing all my inner work and trying to figure out, why am I here? What is my purpose? Like I've been a perspective and
Mm,
positivity coach, but I couldn't understand what the universe was trying to tell me. I'm like, what do you want from me? I couldn't
mm,
understand. I had this major block, and I finally got it. I'm like, oh, you want me to go within and love myself.
mm,
Ah,
mm,
because I was always there. I was always consistent. I was showing up every day on Facebook and
mm,
posting and being there for other people and answering their questions. And I was never there for me. I was never there. I never put my authenticity out there because I didn't even know who I was. I
mm,
really had to go through the the past, but not wallow in it, not, bury myself in it, just ask the why questions and things that used
mm,
to trigger me where my shoulders would go up and I'd be like, oh, why did I do that? It's
mm,
like, no, I have to be okay with this, and that taught me this. It was a
mm.
whole thing on forgiveness. So when you
Wow.
read Transformation 2020 and the chapter that I wrote on
Mm,
forgiveness, my letter of forgiveness, it'll
mhm,
take you a whole different place.
mm,
Because I managed to transform everything from what I thought it was to the lesson and blessing it actually was, and what I've learned from it and been able to move past. I'm like,
mm.
oh, that's what that was about. So there was one day
Wow.
in particular when I lost it. It was an ugly, crying, snotty, like surrender festival that I was right in front of my husband at the time, and he looked at me like, wow. He goes, we've been together for almost 24 years and I've never seen this side of you. He goes, thank you for finally sharing.
Mm,
I knew it was in you the whole time. You didn't know it was in yourself. I'm like,
mm,
and from that moment forward, I started posting a very authentic stories, like my own personal stories on Facebook. And
mm,
people were like, oh my gosh. And I think that by sharing my authenticity, it gave them permission to be
mm,
themselves and go through their own transformation journey. So
mm.
yeah, a lot of healing.
Wow. It's interesting how our partners always see it, but it takes time. Like sometimes, like I guess, like you said, our resilience slash stubbornness is like, because my wife's always like, yeah, I've been telling you this like the last
Yeah.
5 years, and then
Uh-huh.
I had to hear it from someone else.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it took almost 24 years, Davidson. Almost 24 years with my husband. He's like, duh, you've been this way the whole time.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard, right? When it comes from your partner, it's hard to be like take it at face value, or I
Mhm.
don't know. There's just a lot of resistance, right? Like,
Oh, that's a
yeah.
good word. There's a lot of resistance in our lives, period.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, and the more you resist, always ask yourself, why? Why am I resisting this? Because
Mm,
chances are you're resisting it because you're this close to the truth. You're so close to the
mm,
truth. It's right there, but you can't see it because you're blocked.
right.
So, yeah, been
Huh.
through that too.
That's interesting. Yeah. It's funny. I think August 2020 was also when I started loving myself too. I think
Awesome.
because I think it was like far enough into the pandemic where I had so much time to myself, so or with myself that I was like, I better learn to love myself, or else it's not gonna go, because I would distract myself prior, like you said,
Yeah.
being of service, like helping, volunteering, like you said,
Mhm.
posting positive quotes every day and stuff like that, and then people saw, like people that really knew me was like, dude, like you got to take some time to just relax and chill out, like you don't have to be positive all the time. Like it's like, I know
Mhm.
you're having a bad week. Like you don't have to pretend like it's a great week. And then I was like, what do you mean? Like I'm fine. And they're like, no, you're not. Like yeah, I can tell. So they're like, you're being fake because like it's okay to have a bad day once in a while.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God. Yeah.
That's good. That's actually, it's funny that you said that because that was one of my biggest fears putting this book out there, Your Daily Dose of Positivity. I'm like, oh my God. I said, I don't always have a good day. I said, what happens now when people see me and they're like, you're supposed to be Miss Positivity? I'm like, listen, I'm going to be real authentic. Today is not a good
Yeah.
day.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm all about, and that's the whole thing, that your daily dose of positivity is not about rainbows and unicorns. It's about authenticity and vulnerability and being you. Who are you? What do you want out of life? Really, it's time to think about that, not who you think you should be, not who
Mm,
other people want you to be, not, what you think you should be doing with your life. There's so much should. It's like, no more should. No more
mm,
should. Just be. Be in the moment,
mm,
be you, be vulnerable, be authentic. There's so much to be
mm.
said for that.
Yeah, I mean, you're clearly someone who has done a lot of introspective work, right? It's not always easy, it's not always the most fun, but I think eventually we all have to, or we all should take a deeper look, right? Or else we'll wake up one day and be like, oh my God, I'm not even happy at this job or this relationship or even with myself. So until we find out, what makes us tick and be really curious about that, I think it's hard to truly, it's hard to not get phased by other people's
Mhm.
suggestions, and whether it's parents or your spouse or your kids. Like it's hard not to get influenced by what our culture tells us or what society or your neighborhood, right? It's like, oh, everyone is getting married at this time, or like, oh, I'm this age, I should have a kid by now. But it's like, well, what do you actually want, you know?
Exactly. Well, think about the stuff that you learned growing up. Think about what you were conditioned to believe. Like for me, it was like you had to work hard. You had to work hard all the time. And if you weren't working hard, you weren't doing enough. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
no pain, no gain. Really? There doesn't have to be pain. There doesn't
Yeah.
have to be pain. It's like all these things that we learned are limiting. They're limiting us. And
Mm,
they're not even ours. They're not even our beliefs. We just inherited
mm,
them from our parents. And one of the biggest things that I try to do is I try to help people heal their ideals. And what I mean by that is all the old conditioning that you grew up with, who has, made you who you are today, but trying to look at that through a different lens and be like, where did this come from?
mm,
Like, yes, you believe this, but why? Who did you learn this from? Is that
mm,
really serving you? Is that something that you believe, or is that something that
mm.
you were taught to believe because somebody else believed it?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a lot of healing, a lot of healing.
That definitely resonates with me. I would say some of the disempowering beliefs that I believed a lot, like you said, was like I guess like a lot of immigrant cultures, like they're
Mm,
like, well, you have to work harder than everyone else, like, or else like but then I think, well, when you give yourself space to grow and learn and just meditate or just be by yourself, that's when the most creativity happens, right? I'm sure that's
yes.
how the inspiration with the book happened, because you gave yourself space to just feel instead of like think and planning. And I'm sure there were moments of flow state where you're just like crushing it in terms of writing and just putting it, trusting your intuition, right?
Yeah, well, this book, it's funny that you brought that up because this book was started in March of 2019 with a different publisher, with a different everything.
Oh.
And I had created all these quotes, and I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna do like 30 quotes, and I didn't know how many I had at the time, but I'm like, yes, I want to make an impact. And I sent all these quotes to this publisher, and she came back to me and she goes, she goes, this is great. She goes, we can do it as is. She goes, but she goes, maybe you should add some insight. Like how did you come up with these quotes? Because people are gonna want to know more. And I'm like, okay.
Mm,
So, I went back to the drawing board and I started writing all my stories and my insight, whatever, and
mm,
sent it to her. And she goes, well, this is great, but, maybe we should add in some questions so that people can like ask themselves and go deeper. I'm like, oh my God. So I
mm.
started writing these questions and I sent them to her. And then she's like, yeah, we can do this, but I'm like, that's it. I'm closing the book on the book. It's just done. I have a full
Mm,
binder of everything that I wrote, and I just closed it. And I'm like, we're done. This is not the time. I know this is not the time. I'm not
huh.
feeling it anymore. I'm just done. I'm frustrated. And when I'm frustrated, things don't work.
Mm,
So, and I'm really proud of myself for closing the book on the book
mm,
back in March of 2019 because I wasn't ready yet. It
mm,
was not the divine timing. I have allowed the universe, God, spirit, whatever you want to call it, to guide me on this journey. I allowed this higher power to tell me when it was the right time to quit my job. which was February 14th, 2020. I quit my full-time job of
Mm.
17 years. I
Wow.
allowed the universe, spirit to tell me, when to write my book and who to, coach with, the whole 9 yards. Like now it's not
Huh.
all about me, whereas it used to be all about me making the decisions for myself. What do I want? Where do I want to be?
Mm.
I'm like, okay, what's your plan for me? Show
Mm.
the way. And that has really, really, really helped.
Wow, that sounds like I would call that like extreme acceptance or like
Yeah,
radical acceptance.
it's definitely radical acceptance. It
Yeah.
truly is, because now I'm accepting that it's not all about me. My world is not a bubble. I do not exist in a bubble. I am part of a bigger plan.
Mm.
And I need to follow direction.
Mm.
And by following direction, I don't mean my mom and dad going, do this, do that, do this, do that. I mean, I need to get quiet and ask myself, what is my next step? And then I need to
Mm.
shut up and listen. So a lot of people ask the question, God, what do you want from me? Oh, blah, 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 blah.
Mm.
But they're never quiet enough to get the answers.
Huh.
So it really does take practice to get quiet and just listen and pay attention to signs and synchronicities and different things
Mm.
that you may see and that come to you. And it's like, oh, like
Mm.
even watching a football game, I see numbers on the football game. I'm like, oh, I know what that number means. And my husband's like, Dee, it's a score. I'm like, doesn't matter. It's 10-10. 10-10 means something to me. He's like, oh my gosh.
Y- Yeah,
Yeah.
I think I used to be pretty worked up about sports too. And then eventually I realized I was like, is this adding to my life? Like getting this worked up, it would affect my weeks. So like it would affect my Mondays. Like I would just be in a crappy mood for like all of Sunday. Like if we lost, I'd be like, oh, it sucks. Life sucks. Life's unfair, you know? It's like, and then I think the one year when I was like, I just like accept, I'm just like, I just had like a very spiritual connected for whatever
Mhm.
reason. And then that was the year we won the Super Bowl with the
Wow.
Eagles. And it was weird because it was like it's like really early in the season. I saw something click and I was like, it's like, whoa, like they're really gelling. Like you can tell like the love for each other that they had. Like it was just like something I haven't seen before. And I was like,
Yeah.
I think we're gonna win this year, you know?
Awesome.
Yeah.
I love those moments. They're super special.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you can see past what everybody else sees, when you can see into the bigger picture, it's like a glimpse of something. It's like, ooh, ooh, this is going to be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I definitely feel like we have a lot of similarities. I feel like we can write a book about forgiveness like
Oh,
together.
heck yeah.
Maybe that would be a cool project.
I would love to teach a whole course on forgiveness and just get people to surrender their agenda.
uh,
It's like, it's
huh.
not all about you.
Mm,
And as soon as you realize that it's not all about you and that you're here to serve others, but you're here to serve others in finding your true self, it's like,
mm,
oh, that's deep. So
mm,
it kind of it takes you to a whole different level.
mm. That's amazing. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I never thought that I would ever like meeting Elizabeth was so fortuitous, right? Because what happened was I did like the mentorship program for only a day, and
Wow.
then that's where I met Liz, right? For
Yeah.
like that one weekend, and then we connected, and we haven't really like stayed in touch like that much, and then I just saw her post on Facebook. I was like, sure, why not, for the great cause. And here we are today, and
Yeah.
like we crossed, like if it wasn't for that one day, like that
Yeah.
one yes, I would have never met her.
Uh-huh. It's
So
funny how you said that one yes, because when you finally say yes to yourself, you say yes to the universe. So when you say yes to one thing, you're saying yes to yourself and yes to the universe all at the same time, and you don't even realize it.
yeah,
Like, wow. So, and that was in my chapter on forgiveness. It's like
yeah.
in this one moment, I said yes to myself, or no, I said yes to this course. And in saying yes to this course, I said yes to myself and to, the universe. I'm like, wow.
Hmm.
Ooh, it gives me chills just thinking about it.
Hmm. Yeah, it's all we don't often think about like because I think a lot of us anything that's different or strange or something that's outside
Mhm.
our norm, we're so quick to say, no, 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 like that's not for me, or no, I would never,
Yeah.
But I think when we start being open, and like you said, once we start noticing the thing that we are afraid of the most, like the thing that scares us the most,
Yes.
that's when the most life-changing choices really do impact us in a positive way.
Definitely. The magic lies outside of your comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
So your little bubble does not have what you want in it at all.
Mm.
Yeah, it's a safe place and it feels great, but it gets incredibly uncomfortable eventually. Like the magic is
Mm.
outside you. But it's funny
Yeah.
when I say outside, I don't mean to confuse that with outside outside. Do you know what I mean? I
Mm.
don't mean the material world. I
Mm.
mean, it's outside you in the bigger spiritual picture. It's not in the clothes, it's not in the cars, it's not in the
Mhm.
jobs, it's not all about that. But you definitely have to stretch your imagination in
Mm.
order to invite in more opportunities and possibilities. You know,
Mm.
you gotta open. It's not even your five senses; it's past your five senses. When you finally
Mm.
open your eyes, your ears, your mind to experiencing new and different things. I mean, even Mother Nature. Like I started taking pictures of the sun and the moon and this and that. I'm
Mhm.
like, where did this come from?
Yeah, it's so true. I'm very lucky where I just recently moved. My wife and I just moved into this place that we've just purchased our first home, and it's right in front of a lake, right?
Wow, nice.
And like there's moments where I can just stare into like the snow, like
Mm,
snowy lake, and just feel very like blissful,
yes.
right? But I would say 90% of the time I'm too busy like on client calls or whatever it is that I don't appreciate it. But when I do take that 5 to 10 minutes to just stare at the geese or just look at the woods behind it, and like I just feel so happy and
Yeah,
so, like you said, so connected.
exactly. See, connected. That's it. It's all about being connected. You're connected to something so much bigger than you.
Hmm.
And a lot of people don't feel that connection because they don't take time to feel the connection. They don't even know where to look for the connection.
Mm,
So, yeah, it's there.
yeah. I love that. Yeah, I think we could definitely collaborate on a forgiveness project. So I'll definitely reach out to you to see, we could definitely like brainstorm about it, because I think that's something. I think for forgiving like ourselves, I think when we forgive others, like it's actually for ourselves, right? But
Mhm.
I think
Oh,
most
definitely.
people think it is like, well, it's for the other person. That's
Mm,
like, no, it's really for
yeah,
yourself. I think that's the key that I didn't realize.
yeah. No, and growing up, I remember my mom so many times said, "Say you're sorry to your brother. Say you're sorry to your sister." I'm like, "Oh my God." But I never realized that, that was I was always worried about somebody else. I was never worried about me. I never said sorry to me.
Mm,
And it's like, oh, yeah.
mm,
So that was some deep work I did in 2020, forgiving myself
mm,
for my limiting beliefs, for my self-doubts, for the fears, for the worries,
mm,
for all kinds of stuff that I've been dragging with me through life. And
mm.
it's amazing when you finally do forgive yourself, you almost cut the cord and all the baggage falls away and you're like, wow,
Mm.
I'm liberated. Where did this come from?
Huh.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
set yourself free. It's amazing.
Mm.
Hmm.
That's a good point. I think in the last since the pandemic, I think I've averaged an hour more of sleep than
Hmm.
I normally would. Because like you said, I was a typical Manhattaner, right? Like running from place to place, like trying to catch the train. Like if I didn't, I'm like, I'll take a taxi, and then just like, oh, why was there traffic? Just cursing life. And then, even if I was like 1 minute late to a client meeting, I'd be so hard on myself. I'd be like, Davidson, you're such a failure. You have no integrity. What's wrong with you? It was like the worst. And
Wow.
then, since the pandemic, I'm like, whoa, like just giving myself space to sleep,
Yeah.
and then not having to wake up at 5:30 every day. It's like it feels
Yes.
great.
Yeah. Well, listen, just so you know, I listened to everything that you said about what you used to tell yourself in Manhattan.
Uh-huh.
And I wrote about this. I think I wrote about this in my daily dose of positivity. This is so important. If you get nothing else from this conversation, get this. What you think, you create, and what you speak, you affirm.
Yeah.
And it's like, huh? when I finally learned that, I'm like, oh, I need to change my world. I need to change my world.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that's how I would bash myself. I would say things like
Mm,
that to myself. I'm a failure. I'm not enough. I can't believe I screwed that up. What were you thinking? You can't walk. You have MS. Oh my God, no more. No more.
mm,
You will never again hear me affirm that I have a disease. Hell no. I'll tell you, I was diagnosed with it 27 years ago. And
mm,
then I will tell you that I have redefined it as
mm.
modified swagger and motivational spitfire. And I will
Ah, I love
also
it.
tell you that I'm healing. And I'm
Modified
not
swag.
even saying I'm healing anymore. Now I just tell people I'm healed. And they're like, but
Mm.
you're walking with a walker. I'm like, yeah, but I'm healed. On a different level, I'm
Wow.
healed. And I will get there. I know I'll get there because I'm putting out to the universe that I'm healed.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's deep.
Mhm.
Yeah. There's that's so yeah, I love that. That's amazing. That's such a huge takeaway. Yeah.
It's just a whole different shift. And that's what your daily dose of positivity is all about. It's
Mm.
about shifting the way you think now and just being open to a different perspective.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think there's nothing else we could say. I think that's like the ultimate lesson right there. Well, thank you so much, Dee. I want to acknowledge you for just your authenticity and just like you doing the work, right? It certainly shows just your ability to just be with anything that the world gives you. Um not only make lemonade but be able to have like one of the best stands in the world, right? Like world famous lemonade. So I really, I'm so glad we crossed paths, and I'd like to thank um, Liz and Dr. Davia, and I'm so glad that the universe connected us. And
Oh, me too.
yeah, it's a beautiful book. I love like yesterday's event was so touching and really opened up my heart. And yeah, I'm so glad that we share so many similar interests, and can't wait to see what else you create, and excited to support you all the way.
Excellent. Thank you so much for having me on the program, Davidson. You are such a special person and you have such a beautiful spirit. I'm just so grateful that you found your way to your authenticity because you
Oh,
shine so bright.
thank you, Dee.
Yeah.
You're the
Keep
best.
sharing your light with others.
Well, I'll link to your all your what your book, your website, your Amazon, all that good stuff. And if anyone's curious, definitely check out her book. It's inspiring. The quotes are great, and it'll help all of us with our daily practice, right? Because it's a
Yes.
low commitment. It's not like we're asking a lot. Just reading just 10 to 30 seconds every day with the quote.
Yes.
So thank you, Dee. Have a
Thank
great
you.
and congratulations once again for being number one in so many categories, and excited to see you continue to inspire and transform the lives of everyone else around you.
Thank you so much. It's a wonderful place to be, and I'm truly grateful to have been chosen for this.
Mm.